Hey, how's it going, everybody? Today we're going to start a new video series here on the Jargon Report, and we're going to talk about media influence and the way it impacts what you think about the world and influences you to make decisions in your life. So for starts, there's a few concepts that we need to really understand. We need to understand the concept of marketing, psychology, and sociology. So we'll take marketing for start. So the concept of marketing is the action of a business or an entity promoting an idea or a product or service in order to get people to sign on to it, whether it's to buy the product or believe the narrative that's being presented. Ultimately, the goal of a marketer is to influence somebody else. So now that we understand that, let's understand the psychology behind that. So the psychology is understanding how the human mind processes different emotions and feelings and information that is taken in. For example, most marketing campaigns are based on emotional triggers because an emotional trigger is more likely to garner a response from the target audience that will align with the goal of the campaign. Every once in a while, you will see logical-based marketing campaigns. Generally speaking, they're not as effective because an emotional-based plan it touches people's hearts instead of their mind. So that's why most campaigns are emotionally based rather than logically based. So now that we understand how marketing affects psychology, let's understand how it affects sociology, which is a little bit different. Similar concept though. So sociology is basically just the culmination of the psychology of a lot of people or a demographic or a group. It's a lot of times you've heard the term mob mentality thrown around. And that's exactly what it is. It's understanding the collective thought process of a multitude of people. So now that we kind of have a very basic understanding of what those terms mean, let's talk about how the news media uses those concepts to influence us as consumers of their product, the news, in our everyday life. So basically, the news media's number one tool in this arsenal, if you will, is what's called first to market. So if they can be the first person to release a news story or the first person to update on that story, then 9 times out of 10, they're going to gain spectators, they're going to gain a viewing audience, which is ultimately what their revenue is based on, is how many viewers they gain. You know, a smaller news channel like a local city or regional channel isn't going to have as many viewers as a national brand, and therefore they're not going to make as much money because it is based on viewership and return viewership. So when we understand that, we have to understand, what is first to market? What does that mean? Well, in our application, first to market is the breaking story, the the first people to put it out there, an exclusive news story, things of those nature. And where that gets really dangerous is the majority of time people believe the first to market story, and that's as far as it goes. So there might be additional follow-up information. There might be substantiating circumstances that go along with the story that aren't released up front. But at the end of the day, the majority of news consumers are going to only believe the initial story. So if we take, for example, George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, coronavirus, the war in Afghanistan, and you look back at the initial news releases of all of those situations, they triggered very emotional responses in America. And I don't want to dive too far into detail with those stories. Those are going to come in later topics. But it's important to understand, and we'll use George Floyd as an example because he's the most recent. It's important to understand when they released his story, it was portrayed as this innocent man was brutally murdered by a police officer while multiple other police officers stood around and watched. Well, by the time that story was redacted and updated to be a realistic view of the situation, opinions were formed, the damage was done, and it ultimately didn't matter that they updated it. So I caution people, be careful buying into those initial news releases, because a lot of times the news outlets don't have all the information at that point, but they understand that from a marketing standpoint, they can hook you by releasing the emotional aspect of the story, even though they don't have all the facts. So something to keep in mind. This video is intended to be short. It's intended to be a predecessor to a couple others that we have coming up. It'll be important to understand these concepts when evaluating the following. We would like to say, though, don't take anything we have to say for granted. Trust but verify. Do your own independent research and make sure you're making informed decisions and forming informed opinions of the things that are going on in the world around you. I don't feel like enough people do that. And until we start doing that, the media is going to continue to control our lives and how we view the world. So that's all for now. Check out the upcoming videos, and don't forget, do your research. I'll put links to my research in the description below, as well as timestamps for different portions of the video. Till next time, thanks for watching.